Heaven is a song that we can sing, a sacred gift from God. Let's join the heart.
So bonjour, bonjour everybody. Bonjour Ndinwe Maganaduk, Nuichi Waganuk, Niigaanwewidam James Sinclair, Niigaanwewidam James. It's an honor to be here. Miigwetchi Sema. Bonjour, Nimishomis, Nimijian Nabens. What a lovely introduction that was from my uncle and auntie. Most people, when they start introducing me like that, say, we know about Sinclair. It's usually the family secrets start after that. So I'm so happy we didn't start talking about the Sinclair stories, eh? It's an honor to be here today. It's such a beautiful day. It's a really beautiful, remarkable day. I'm going to talk a little bit about this day, and today in particular. And can you hear me at the back? Yeah? Okay, so I'll try to talk as close to the mic as I can go. They wanted to give me one of these things like this, and I was like, okay, I'm not giving like a rock concert, so nor am I giving a speech or a sermon, but you know what? Steve's tricked me before. When he invites me to speak, I spoke at his church a short while ago, and I got there, and I was like, oh, where's the minister? And they're like, no, you're the sermon today. And I was like, what? And they're like, go, you got 20 minutes, go, give us a sermon. And so I've been tricked before. It's a real honor to be here. I've been told that I have 25 minutes, so I actually I don't ever work with notes. So I want you to know I take it very seriously to try to get a lot of work done tonight. But they've promised me a dip in your pool if I'm done afterwards. So that's great. So I'm working towards that right now. That's right. And if I'm not good, you'll just throw me in. That's great. So that's wonderful. I want to talk about this. I want to talk about this right here tonight. So what is this? It's tobacco, right? How many people have given or gifted tobacco to someone in their lifetime? I want to see raise of hands. Okay, good. Do you know why? Now, some of you can probably go, yes, and probably come up here and explain, and we could talk about tobacco. In fact, I think we should really just talk about tobacco, because everything in the gift of what my auntie and my uncle just gave me can teach us absolutely everything you need to know about life and law in this territory. Everything you need to know is in what you just witnessed. It's in what you give to the Ishkade over there. It's in what you see growing around you. It is if you are lucky enough to grow tobacco. Has anyone tried to grow tobacco in their lifetime? Anybody? Yeah, you've tried? How hard is it?
I couldn't get it to germinate.
It's like impossible, right? And you can imagine how hard it is in this territory where you need to have constant sunlight, constant care and vigilance and nurturing. If you are lucky enough, you can take one tiny seed, which is about this big, one tiny seed of tobacco, if you're lucky enough, and usually you have to take about a big handful and and you'll get one leaf out of it. If you're lucky enough and you're patient and you're caring and you take enough time and energy and effort and you spend your whole year working on it, my former brother-in-law used to have heat lamps that he would work on every single day, and he'd race home from work and work all day. You can maybe get this much tobacco. Maybe. If you're lucky. It demonstrates to you about the value of commitment and responsibility and energy and patience and love. This, if you're able to get lucky enough to get this much amount and gift it to someone, what you're saying is, look how hard I have worked for you to give this gift to you. And it's an incredible responsibility for me to take this from you. It's an incredible responsibility because I am taking your time, the most valuable gift we have in this lifetime. I am holding your time. Now, of course, it's a little different now. We buy things now. It's not quite the same kind of energy, but you can imagine what the tradition is that goes into tobacco. A sema. I want to talk about gifts tonight. And I want to talk about the power of gifts, the responsibility of gifts, and the law of gifts. Because what you have entered into, and I see in your programs there, we are treaty people, right? We are people welcome on this territory. Well, all of that is because of law. You are welcome because of law, because of the things that have happened before you have arrived, that have welcomed you into this place. And you are so lucky to be a part of this place, just as I am lucky to be a part of this place, because someone had to welcome me into this place too. Someone had to welcome my great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparents into this place all the way back to the first moment of creation. That moment of creation, when human beings were set down onto this earth, someone had to be there to welcome them. Let me just say that again. When human beings were placed onto this earth, someone had to be there to care for human beings. Someone had to be there to take care of them, to welcome them into territories, not cast them out. Someone had to be there to give them their skins and their bodies and their territories in which to live. And those beings were not just the animals, although you can probably see a quick connection there, but also the water and the air and the sun and the stars. All of those beings had to agree for human beings to be a part of their lifetime. And so that's the gift. That's the gift of acceptance and the gift of recognition. I want to talk about 3 gifts that are happening right now. You can see it right around you. 3 gifts. One is way in the past. One is happening right now. The other one is going to happen in the future. In 1671, the Wemitigojawak, or the French, came into this territory, or what we call Anishinaabe territory. Anishinaabe territory stretches all the way to the Great Lakes, goes out to Saskatchewan, goes down into the Dakotas, goes all the way north, all the way far north, all the way up to Hudson Bay. Anishinaabe territory stretches into many other territories as well. And when Anishinaabe or Ojibwe people, when we met other people, there was protocols to be followed. And in 1671, the French came to us at a place called Bawating, or Sault Ste. Marie. Everybody know what Sault Ste. Marie is? Any Sault Ste. Mariers out here? Anybody? No? Nobody wants to admit it? All right. They're like, okay, Sinclair, we didn't know this was participatory. All right, that's good. In Sault Ste. Marie, what happened in 1671 is the Wemitigojawak invited the Anishinaabe to be part of a relationship. And what they did was a man called Saint Lucien, who is the representation of the French king, said, well, we'd like to invite you to be children of the king and to give up all of your land to the king. And the Anishinaabe were like, what? And the French were like, yeah, this is a good idea. You give us all your land and you can be under our protection like children. And the Anishinaabe were like, that doesn't really work for us. Let's try something else. Let's make an agreement to be brothers and sisters. And so we will recognize your French king as our father. That's what we'll do. There went my notes. We're here for 3 hours. Perfect. Yes. Perfect. So, and so what the Anishinaabe did is they said, well, we'll be brothers. And so the French said, okay, fine. And in the middle of their territory, much exactly like I'm doing right now, minus the microphones and minus perhaps some other items that are here, exactly like this, with all of the chiefs that were in attendance, the Sac and Fox, the Anishinaabe, all of the allies of the Anishinaabe, the Potawatomi, the Odawa, all of them signed an agreement. They took a piece of paper, exactly like right here, and they took this piece of paper and they put it right in the front of everyone, and everyone, one at a time, the French signed it first, and then one at a time, each Anishinaabe, each Potawatomi, each Odawa, every chief came up and signed that piece of paper together to agree to be brothers. What does that tell you? Well, that tells you that the Anishinaabe totally knew what writing was. There's no such thing as illiteracy. That's the first thing. Anishinaabe totally always had writing, have never not had writing. That's the first thing. The second is, what did they sign? Well, the French signed using their name, but the Anishinaabe signed using their clans, which are what? Animals. They signed using a deer. Some signed using a ginnabik, a snake. Others signed using an otter. Some used a bear. What were they doing in that moment? They were saying who they were. They were saying, and if you know anything about clans, you're really talking about your own family identity because you inherit your clan from your parent. But you're also talking about the ways in which your clan operates and how it connects you to both your family and to all the other beings in your environment. Because when I say at the beginning, Namagoshin Dodem, I'm telling you that I'm Rainbow Trout Clan. So what I'm telling you is I'm telling you that I have a unique relationship with rainbow trout. But it doesn't end there, does it? I have a unique relationship with water because water is a relative to rainbow trout. I'm also telling you that I have a relation with air, which is connected with water, and so on and so on and so on and so on. When Anishinaabe were gifting those images to the Wemitigojawak, the French, they were saying, these were the beings, all of these beings which accepted us into their territory, that recognized us, and we have a relationship with them. And now you can have it too. And by you carrying that relationship, you carry it forever. Because then the Anishinaabe traded that signature with animals on every single treaty throughout the Great Lakes until they started recognizing our signatures as X's. And then in 1817, right here on this land that we're standing on right now, Chief Pegwis and four other chiefs signed using their dodems as well. They signed with those. And that practice amongst Anishinaabe has always been with us. And what it is saying is that all of you carry that relationship with the animals, the water, the air, and the earth. And that you too get to have the beauty and the privilege of that relationship because you carry it too. And that by carrying that, you then not just carry that in the way in which we're talking about gifts, but when you accept a gift, you carry the responsibility of the gift. So that when you give me this tobacco, you expect me to do something with it, to use it, to think about it. Because every gift, you have two options to do. You can either take it, or you can throw it on the ground and walk away. That's your options with a gift. And what is the law of the gift? So that's in 1671 and 1701 and 1817, all the way up to this territory right now. That's the first gift I want to talk about. The second gift that I want to talk about is, right now, there are grandmothers and young women and mothers walking around Lake Winnipeg. They are doing what's called the Lake Winnipeg Water Walk today. I know this because my mother is leading that walk. And I know this because on Friday night, everyone's arriving in Stan McKay's front yard for a big feast. And we're apparently camping in his front yard. And probably using a shower. But right now, grandmothers are walking around that lake because that lake today is the most polluted lake in North America. Our great relative, Winnipeg, also known as clouded water. And why is the water clouded? Because of the algae. That water is so produced of toxins and which produces algae, it is stifling and killing our relatives, the fish. It is also killing our ability to live. We can't drink that water. We can't even swim in that water without getting swimmer's itch now. That great being, which is the descendant of the Great Lake Agassiz, which was the big, huge ocean that covered this territory for years and years, is sick, sicker than it's ever been before. And these grandmothers are making an offering to us. And the offering to us is that we will give up our time and our life and our energy for this moment. And what are we going to do with that gift? Because once you get a gift, and you're all receiving it and accepting it right now, you have a choice. You can either do something with it, or you can throw it to the ground. That's your choice. That's happening right now. Just like in 1671 when those dodems were given, in 1817, and you're carrying that now, and that's a long time ago. It's hard to think about gifts that are hundreds of years ago. But that gift is still being given. Today, here's a third gift. Today at the AMC Grand Chief election, did you guys know that the AMC Grand Chief election was today? Okay, so there's two front runners. Grand Chief Niigaanwewidam, the incumbent, and then the challenger, which was Donovan Fontaine, the chief of Saugeen. And there was a question asked in that morning session before the election took place. It was one of the last questions. And the question was by a chief from up north who said to the two candidates, or three, there's three candidates, there's a third candidate there too, Sheldon Kent, said to them, what if a First Nations had a project that was about resource extraction, and they had an industry that was willing to partner with them, but it potentially could damage the environment? What's the choice there? And so Chief Fontaine from Saugeen came up and said, First Nations should be allowed to decide on their own what they can do with their own territory. Grand Chief Niigaanwewidam came up and said, it is the responsibility of all of us to care for the earth. It's not the responsibility of an individual First Nation to decide what happens with the earth with all of us, because the earth is interconnected. And so Grand Chief Niigaanwewidam won today. And I think he won in large part because of one of those kinds of answers, in that we all have the responsibility to take care of this earth. And he's not talking about the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs or even individual First Nations. He's talking about all of us. All of us carry the responsibility of caring for the earth. And that, yes, there is the recognition that there is poverty out there, and there's very difficult choices to be made, particularly in First Nations that have projects that may hurt the earth. But at the same time, we all have to live with this earth, and we all have to live with Lake Winnipeg. We all have to live with this soil that we live on. And that at the current moment when there's 36 fracking projects in the province, it is a dire time. It is a dire moment in this province's history. It is a dire moment in our lifetime because we are playing with our grandchildren's future. What gifts will we be giving to them? What gifts will those be? So what does this all say to you? What does this all say to you tonight? It says to you three things. It says that First Nations need allies, and they're looking for allies. All three stories that I told you are about gifts, because gift giving has always been the way relationships are formed in this territory. Whether you go up north right now to Opaskwayak Cree Nation and you knock on someone's door, what's the first thing people are going to give to you? Hello, hello? Yeah, well actually tea will be the third gift, because what will they give you just before that? Bannock, that's right. They'll give you bannock before tea, that's a rule. Okay. Usually a greeting and a name, and then food. That's usually the three gifts you always get in every First Nations home. And then you'll get time, usually a story. Those are usually the four things. And it'll sound like this. Hey, tell me about your cousin, right? Or something like that. Or tell me how you're doing, right? That'll be how it'll go. So those four things are almost always what you're going to get in any First Nations home. Those gift-giving processes are not just simple, friendly making things. That's how law operated. When Treaty 1 was negotiated just down the road over here, or sorry, just up the road over there, when Treaty 1 was negotiated, it was a day full of gift-giving before any talk about land. In any process, gifts are the process that make relationships. And if there's no gifts, there's no relationships. And remember, you always have a job. When you get a gift, you receive it, and you either think about it, take it, reflect upon it, or you throw it away. Now, First Nations are looking for allies. And how are they doing that? They're looking at your gifts. And so tonight I want to do the second part of my talk tonight by talking about the responsibilities of gifts. And that the responsibilities that you have as members of a relationship to give your gifts. And what are those gifts that you're giving? So the first thing is that I would encourage you to think about in any interaction with First Nations people, but interactions amongst yourselves on this land with not just Native peoples, but also with the land itself, is what are the gifts that are being exchanged? And I've seen so many gifts already tonight. That entire song, all three songs you sung were about gifts. Even the God is shaking the water. What was that? Yeah. And the other one, that other song that you had there was every single part of that song was about law. It's about the gifts of creation that we are seeing. And so the first thing that you do with the gift is you recognize the gift, but you also bring a gift. And you did that through prayer. That's a law, by making that offering. Now, creation has a choice on whether to accept your gift or not. And you hope it does. And that's what that sunrise ceremony that we do every morning as Anishinaabe is all about. We hope the sun will rise. That's what that song is called. That's what that song is about. And if it doesn't, we're in a lot of trouble. Now, the second thing that I would say about gifts is that there is a responsibility that when you take a gift to think about what the gift means. When you accept a gift, when you take this tobacco, I'm thinking, what do you want? What would you like? And what is my responsibility to you by accepting that gift? By you walking into someone's home and them offering you food and their name and a greeting, every single part of that is a part of a gift, is a part of telling you who they are. So the word bonjour, for example, it's not a reference to a French word, even though some may talk about that. It's a reference to wena bonjour. It's a reference to our very first relation. So when we say bonjour to you, we're actually telling you about creation. We're telling you all about who our relatives are, who our families are. And the second thing is when we say our name, when I say Niigaanwewidam James, I'm telling you who I am. So who I am and what I do and my job And my entire life is based around this job. And the word Niigaanwewidam means future sound, or sound that announces the future. And when I was given that name at 6 years old, I spend my whole life trying to live up to that name, because that name is a gift, and that's the gift that it's a responsibility. And that when I give you that name, I ask you to think about what am I doing, or what am I hope to do, and that when you give me your name, whether it be the name Dick or Schneider or Johnson, and that I think about all of those relations that had to be there to give you that name. Because when you tell me your name, you're not just telling me about yourself. You're telling me about all of your relations, all of your ancestors, and all of the work that it took for you to get standing and sitting right here, right now in 2014. And then finally, when you bring your food to a gathering, I think about all the work that you put into that food, all the love and all the care, all of the consideration that you put into, all of the patience and the love and the work that you put into that. And that maybe if I'm lucky enough, the gift I give back to you will be anywhere close to as good as you did with me. And that's how law works. Because gifts are not about endings. Gifts are about beginnings. This tobacco that you gave to me tonight, I will never forget. This night where we met tonight, we talked, where you started telling Sinclair family secrets, I'll never forget that, right? Because when I see you again, I will think about that, and we will be tied together forever. And when we meet again, what's the first thing we're going to do? Trade a name, greeting, probably some food, and a story. Because that relationship never ends, it goes forever. So that when you come to those gatherings, that you think about the responsibility of those gifts and the law around those gifts. Just hold on for 1 second. Oh, the third thing I would say is that when you have your gifts, when you give your gifts, that you recognize the power of those gifts, because you yourself are inside of that gift that you give to a First Nations person. The fourth one is the most complex out of all of those things. And I would just encourage you that when you're interacting with anyone in this environment, for First Nations in particular, but with the earth, is that the power of gifts sometimes are in letting the gifts grow on their own. And there are times to recognize the autonomy of gifts and to recognize the independence of them. Because at times, gifts need time to grow. Gifts in relationships do not grow overnight. And that I tell my students, I work at the University of Manitoba as a professor, and my students all want to get out there and do their research, and they want to work in First Nations communities, and they want it to be done in one semester. And they say, and I say, well, okay, well, what are you going to work on? They're like, Anishinaabe thought. And I'm like, oh, that's going to be great. In one semester, great. And they're like, okay, so here's my plan. I'm going to go to a community, and everyone's going to talk to me, and then I'm going to learn it all, I'm going to write it all down, and I'm going to give it in, and then done. And I'm like, okay, so it doesn't quite work that way. And I say, in fact, if it does happen that way, what you've got is not Anishinaabe thought. But the most important thing to recognize is that gifts and relationships take a long period of time in which to grow. And I think that, for me, is one of the biggest failures of the Christian and First Nations community, is that there's been an expectation that that relationship can happen so quickly. And that is the epitome of that is the residential school system. The residential school system attempted as quickly as possible to try to indoctrinate and change and assimilate First Nations children into what was perceived to be a sort of sense of Christianity. Because what I actually think is what was produced was not a sense of Christianity. It was not based on the teachings of Christianity. What instead was a very violent, hierarchical, and abusive relationship is what was formed, for the most part. Not for everyone, but for the most part. And as a result, those residential school systems have created now a legacy of distrust, pain, anger, mistrust, and a failure of gift giving. a denial of gifts, and that it is almost extremely impossible. It's almost impossible in many cases for First Nations people to recognize that the church has any gifts to give whatsoever. And as a result of that system, it will take beyond our lives to ever begin to open that conversation again for many of us. And for many of us, we want that relationship to happen overnight. We want that relationship to fix. I grew up in the United Church, and I'm a traditional Medewan person, but I recognize the power and the beauty of the United Church. My first partner in high school was a Mennonite girl. And she was incredible, wonderful, beautiful family. And I cannot say the gifts that I learned from being in my very short time in the Mennonite church. But I can tell you that people are so blocked by that residential school experience that it is almost impossible to see it. It is impossible to see the power of love when you are so hurt by a relationship that was expected to change overnight. And that what happened with those residential school survivors is they learned that pain, and they learned that indoctrination, they learned that as those assaults, and they brought that home. And they brought that to those communities, because when you had no parent yourself, it was very difficult. I know that because I experienced it myself. But the power of gifts is that the gifts can teach us patience. Gifts can teach us about responsibility. And maybe, if we work every day at a year, maybe, we might get a little ways, a tiny little bit. But look at the beauty that we create if we're patient and if we spend every day at it. And for those of us, if we spend our entire life working at it, we can maybe begin to rectify some sense of relationship. And that for some Indigenous people, there might be a possibility to see some beauty in this relationship of what it is now. For many, it's not healthy, and it's represented in Lake Winnipeg. Because in the end, the last gift, the fifth one that I would encourage you to think about, is that gifts begat more gifts. And that if our gifts are given and they are accepted in the kindest and gentlest way, as Anishinaabe, when they were placed on this earth and those animals agreed to take good care of us, and that as a result, the gift we gave back is that we would carry their names forever. So there's a rainbow trout out there at the first beginning of creation that said, oh yeah, we'll take the Sinclairs. We'll take those guys. And when they agreed to take care of us, and all of those rainbow trout that now have worked hard and very hard so that I could be standing here right now, that took one rainbow trout to think, well, I need to do that forever. That took one spirit of that water and the spirit of the air and the spirit of the earth to have vision so that we could be inheriting this earth now and that we could be a part of this incredible creation. We need to give gifts in the interests of more gifts. So let me say that again. When you give a gift, I want you to think, what's my next gift? When you sing a song, I want you to think, what's the next song I'm going to sing? When you gift food, what's the next food I'm going to bring? When you give your name, when is the next time I'm going to see that person? And I promise you that if you work by that law, you will be doing the most Anishinaabe thing that there is. The most Anishinaabe thing that you could do, or the most Indigenous thing, I don't like to be pan-Indian, but I am a PhD in this stuff. What I'd say is that most Indigenous communities think in terms of what's the next step in this relationship. When I give you that gift, when I give you that food, or when I give you that name, or when I give you that time, and when I give you that treaty, when I give you that dodem, when I give you an offering of this walk around Lake Winnipeg, where I'm carrying Lake Winnipeg with me and it never stops moving, and I carry that. You can imagine these grandmothers, walking 49 kilometers a day. Try walking 49 kilometers in 2 days, so that's a bit harsh. 24 and a half a day. Try walking 24 kilometers tomorrow. See how far you make it. When they're walking on that highway and they're making an offering to you, then what is the next offering they're going to do? Well, they're going to get up the next day and they're going to do it again. And so now when they're doing that work for you and for your children and for your grandchildren and for your grandchildren's grandchildren, what are you going to do with that gift? Every gift that you give has an opportunity to create something in the future. And that is ultimately what you hope to create is life. And when you make that life, you do it in the healthiest, hopefully the healthiest, meaningful, and beautiful way possible. Because that, in the end, is what a relationship could, should, and can be. And that's what I hope to leave with all of you tonight. And so with that, I say miigwech, and I give you that gift. I look forward to spending time with all of you. I also look forward to hearing from my brother Robert on the gift that he's giving to all of us in the city right now. He's a really remarkable guy. So I would say miigwech to all of you.
A sacred